Alright guys, I am actually making a second video on the way home from getting this dumbbell from Zach Stanowicz. It's a 160 pound Thomas Inch dumbbell replica, so globe dumbbell with a 2 3/8 inch handle. Thing's massive, but I actually had a bigger one, but I had to swallow my pride and wanted to make a trade agreement for something smaller so I could get more quality work in. And so while I'm heading home, there was another topic I wanted to touch on that's also come up in work. Again, health and wellness coach for a HRT wellness clinic that also does GLPs and weight loss programs is who I primarily work with there. The thing that I like about the company that I work for is it's fundamentally a part of their program that we have patients journal their daily nutrition. And I know that sounds like very simple and obvious and not exactly revolutionary, but you'd be surprised the number of patients who don't do that and get frustrated when they don't see progress, right? And the point of this video is I had a patient make a comment a while back that I'll say, like, I like to really try to be a deep thinker, critical thinker. I like to really try to challenge myself to be philosophical about things, and I try to look behind the curtain, so to speak, and really try to take away some more meaningful lessons from everyday life and experiences. So I say that to say this patient I was talking with is making great progress, and whenever I have patients making great progress, I like to kind of celebrate them by saying, hey, if I use you as an example for some of my other patients who aren't making such great progress, what would be something, one or two things that you could pass along to them that you feel really made the difference, right? And gives them a chance to reflect on what their successes have been attributed to. And I think in a way people really enjoy feeling like they are serving as a role model and as a symbol of possibility for someone else. So it's a really great coaching tool, honestly. When people hit progress milestones, a super simple, great tool is just to ask people, hey, if you have someone all walking up to you asking you what made the difference, what kind of advice would you give them? And this patient this day made a pretty awesome comment. She said, as tedious as it can be, I think the thing that helps me the most is tracking my nutrition every day. She's like, obviously I don't have to crunch the numbers every time I eat the yogurt and the cheese stick, whatever. She knows what that is by now, right? But the act of tracking it. She made the comment, she said, the reality is you can't have change without tracking. And it's, just face value, you're like, oh yeah, absolutely. You can't tell if you're making progress if you don't know where you were at before. But I think, when you really put that under like the microscope and analyze it, I mean, it's fundamentally tracking, whether it's physically with paper or digitally with an app or just mentally. We can't see change. We can't define something as change for better or for worse if we don't have a point of perspective to compare it against, right? And as soon as that comparison exists, we could consider that tracking, right? Better day than yesterday. Progress, that's tracking, right? I've lost weight. I've gotten stronger. I'm happier. Whatever the case is, there has to be that comparison. So, looking into it more, I do have, it seems like I have a good little solid group of patients who just really are not compliant with that aspect of the program. And I'm always looking for ways to kind of, elicit an effect from them and an emotional response that really grabs their attention and helps them understand that this is a vital part of their process. And if they are frustrated and disappointed, that it's until they are willing to put that work in, it's, they kind of, to be it, they only have themselves to blame, right? You're not putting in the effort. Why would you expect the result? Again, I'm guilty of that too, right? Take it easy on workouts, and then I act surprised when I don't hit a PR. I mean, we all do that, right? Hang back at your job and then be surprised when your annual review doesn't give you a bigger raise. Totally a thing. So, I was looking into it, and there was a study done, I think, maybe 2008. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but by Kaiser Permanente. They did a giant case study where they basically compared people's success with weight loss between two main groups. One group journaled their nutrition every day. The other group did not. And what they ended up finding was that, on average, patients who journaled their daily nutrition lost 100% more weight, right? 2 times the amount of weight that the group who did not journal lost, right? And so it's a very real, tangible, calculable result from that study that I've made a point to try to quote more with my patients. And hey, if you lost 5 pounds, that's awesome. What if you'd lost 10? Would you want that? Yeah, okay. What if I told you that journaling was all you had to do to lose 2 times more weight, right? In that context, the same thing applies for getting stronger. Obviously, getting better grades in school, increasing your intellectual skills. Art, any of that stuff, guys. So I think really this is more of I've really liked that statement. You can't have change without tracking. And I think the second piece of this is people have to be willing to accept the role they are choosing to play and the outcome that they are experiencing. If this means more than anything in the world to you to lose 15 pounds before your wedding, or, lose 15 pounds before you take your wife on your anniversary cruise, then it should mean enough to do the journaling if that's all you thought it took, right? And there's something else is there if you're saying this is the most important thing in the world to me, but I don't know if I'm willing to write down what I eat every day if that's all it takes, or I really want to do well in this competition. Well, then write down what you're doing. I think the point here is you can have change without tracking, but not every extrapolation that we're going to get from this journaling effort is meant to be had up front, right? Sometimes we're not going to have these revelations immediately. Sometimes it's more about collect the information now, and in 6 months, when you have formulated better questions for yourself, or you have a better understanding of the trajectory of how things went, is when you can retroactively go back and say, okay, well, I did better this month, and that's what I was doing. And you're going to have to compare in order to see what differences between each month made that ultimate change. So to kind of summarize it all, I think get in the habit of tracking is a huge thing for people, whether it's your workouts, whether it's your nutrition, whatever it is that you're trying to make progress on, track that in a more formal way, but don't get married to the idea that you're supposed to see answers and then get enlightenment up front, right? Just follow your process like normal, add this one extra little homework assignment of jotting down what you do every day or documenting what you do every day. And don't put pressure on yourself to have that revelation tomorrow or this month. Maybe it takes 6 months. Maybe it takes a year. Maybe you'll be brushing your teeth one night and you won't look at your notes at all, but you will have this reflection and say, maybe that's it. And I think that's the other important part, right? This very common, people probably hear all the time from school that the easiest way to retain information is to write it down. Even if you don't plan on reading the notes that you just took, the act of interpreting the information and translating that into the handwritten text, reciting what it is you've just been told to be true it really solidifies that information in your mind, right? So it's the act of doing it itself has a lot to do with retention. So same thing there, right? If you find yourself shying away from nutrition journaling, either you need to find a more convenient method or more favorable method, or you need to kind of maybe do some self-reflection on, are you avoiding, kind of facing some bad decisions? Are you weaker in some areas of self-control than you would like to really admit? If you accept that that's the case, are you just, are you agreeing with that school bully who told you, you liked, snacks too much? I don't know. You know what I'm getting at. Like, sometimes we have an aversion to accepting a truth if we think it's going to agree with or side with maybe another person's perspective or belief, that we don't want to be caught agreeing with that person. We don't want to have the same views or outlooks of that individual if we don't approve or respect or agree. So there's some other stuff that goes into that. But that's journaling, tracking can be done in a number of ways. I'm just rambling, but I'll say this: some people don't like using apps and devices. Totally get it. You can handwrite it. If some people say, well, I don't really want to carry a journal around with me, well, you know what? Now, something that I've tried to implement more with people is we all most likely have smartphones, and if not, we still have a device on us at all times that can take a picture. Even if you don't know the contents of your food and your meals and your snacks, I would have some patients take a picture of what they're about to eat or consume and put that in a little special folder titled Nutrition Journal or whatever on their phone. And even the act of, this is what I ate, well, it's going to be time-stamped and date-stamped. So if you really wanted to pull that information out later, you could. But you don't have to know the calories to see the size of the plate compared to the utensils around it. Or, if you do seconds, I used to tell people, take a picture of every plate every time you get seconds or extra helpings. And sometimes they're confronted with, I'm about to take the third picture of this same meal, right? Even if some of that more like numerical data is missing, that component of how many calories, what are the macros, still, I think the element of taking the picture and saving it in a designated folder is similar to that theory of writing it down to retain it, right? It makes us confront our choices, and it makes us evaluate our choices. And in a way, like kind of literally, we have to live with them because it's going to be stored in a device in our pocket, or it's going to be part of our life now. So think about that kind of stuff. Find good, convenient ways to track. But don't get married to the idea that you're supposed to find out exactly what the best answer is right away. All right, get after it.